this out.
So you worked it out.
They just stayed up the hill and came in at the end and brought fire trucks. See what did you? Was it?
Yep.
Oh, maybe things are coming back.
Trying to get, Norm to get them national anthem. All of them.
He has now tasked me with that, so
Oh,
you can
sorry.
like leave that be for a moment.
If you
He
don't,
introduced me yesterday, I'm like, I said, this is why you're a successful businessman.
oh yeah,
You took one challenge and you just dumped it down on me. And he just looked at me and started laughing and was like,
because 1% of town gets to see how magical the start of the parade is, and everybody else misses it.
you can just come sit on that corner.
And it is the best start to any parade that you've ever seen. Now, if you ever heard what happens, do you post on Facebook?
We do, we stream that part live frequently. Our connection
Okay,
when we try to stream because of the people, but
can you record it?
Amy did do the national anthem, she did reshare out there. Yeah, not the whole.
Guys, what do you think?
Oh, sorry.
Should we get started?
Good.
Are you ready, Rachel? All right. Welcome to the July 8th Parks Board meeting. And let's call the meeting to order. Rachel, would you take roll, please?
Ruben Swarthout.
Here.
Scott Reese.
Here.
Danny Mercer.
Here.
Dan Mulder.
Here.
Here we have a quorum. Let's see, and has everybody had a chance to look at the agenda? Any comments? We have a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll move.
Second. All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. All righty, let's see then, let's move on to board communications, Rachel. Anything? Oh, there was something in the
We
packet,
skipped
right?
them. We just do the minutes, sorry. I missed it.
I'm sorry, no, you didn't miss it.
That's okay.
Okay, minutes from last month. Any comments on that?
Move to approve.
Second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Back to board communications. I did see there was a note in here from a resident about Shea Overlook Park, right?
Yeah, it was board communications, public comment, either here nor there. But yes, that email is in regards to Shea Park. We reseeded it after that construction was done at that house next door. It's very shaded. I don't know how that reseeding will go.
We don't have sprinklers there.
No, there's no irrigation. So it's not really conducive to putting a garden in, or anything like that. So I don't know if it's something, I mean, it's up to the board. It's something we can keep an eye on. Staff doesn't really feel comfortable putting a lot of money into having a company come out, only because we only do that at certain parks. That's usually along the waterfront. And even that's fairly light. That's something Department of Public Works usually does.
Would you want to have Dan's Green Side out, give you a quote for what it would be to just do like a couple treatments a year? Not like maybe the whole shebang, but. And you could also ask him, is it even worthwhile if there's no irrigation?
I guess my question is on where do we draw the line? If we do it there, do we do it at Kiwanis? Do we do it at Indian Town Park? I mean, I just don't, and that's something we could definitely discuss. It doesn't need to be this meeting, but maybe that's a bigger, I just feel like if we do it there, that opens the door to doing it other places. So I think we have to have some sort of idea.
Why don't we talk about that? Maybe,
But a quote wouldn't hurt, at least then we know, but.
you want to do it at next month's meeting, maybe, yeah, like, do we want to do in-town parks? I know we've done the waterfront parks, but,
And even that's kind of dwindled down, like.
I know that. Like the park, everyone wants the park to look great, but like the feel of that park is rustic. I mean, it's a wooden picnic table, there's no trash can, there's no amenities there. I don't know if we really need to put a ton of money to do treatments of a park that is already on a very rustic street. Like that's kind of the vibe.
I just wonder though, if we just put like a couple $100 investment into it for a couple of years. then it's on its own. The grass is filled in, it chokes the weeds out.
I think that's a good idea.
So do you want to defer it though? We could talk about all the parks and have that one in context with everything else.
I mean, I think staff can gather information to see what it would cost in the meantime. That way, when we have the discussion,
Sure.
we have that information.
I think at the very least, we should be responsive to the request. I mean,
Yeah.
doesn't mean we necessarily can do anything, but wrote a note. It doesn't look great. I drove up there.
Yeah, but as Jamie said, it is
It's
kind of
pretty
rustic.
shit. Hard.
I have somebody complain about it being too polished. It gets one like.
That's right.
Did you have anything else this month, Rachel?
I'll actually, yeah, I'll do this now. Tim Knudsen from Beckett and Raider sent the designs, bear with me real quick, for Shea Park. For the 4-foot path, they made all those changes. So he has the phase 1, that is the path connecting the locomotive to the AHA and the stairs for a total of $21,639.
And that includes the stairs?
Correct. So it's significantly lower.
Way lower.
So the plan is to go to council July 21st. Give them this plan with this budget. And seek approval to spend, well, to go to planning commission. And then seek approval to spend the $30,000 that's in capital outlay with the intent of still fundraising.
I was gonna say, that's,
Oh, yeah.
so
And, I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, the intent is to fundraise, continue to fundraise for that.
Correct.
So you said you have gotten a few calls about the $1,000.
I've had 2 calls, no physical checks yet, but two calls that we'll see checks from.
I talked to Bill, we're in too.
I think there's 2 components to this. Fundraising is wonderful and we will do our due diligence. But staff is gonna stress to council that if for some reason fundraising, you know, we're a year in, or a year and a half in, or it comes to fall and fundraising hasn't kicked off, like, we're legally we're obligated to make that AHA ADA accessible in some form. So there is some sort of time, in my personal opinion, you know, the AHA went in, it hasn't been ADA accessible since it went in. The locomotive is now ADA accessible, so without, or with the stairs, however we do that, so hopefully we can work with council to come to some sort of agreement that we can either do.
Do you have a picture of the?
Yeah. Pull it up. It's also nice because we won't have to bid it out. So that's the survey. Hold on. There it is.
That's good.
And it doesn't show this, it shows it off here. So that's already, this is already done. We can consider this completed already. Because when the cover poured the concrete around, it was already attached there. So this won't even be a part of it. It's just gonna be this going up to the stairs. So.
And does that, taking that part out, reduce the price even more then?
It would, yes. I can't give a number, but yes.
Okay.
So it's all good news.
And just, this is just a minor point, but, you see where it shoots off from the locomotive
Yeah,
and then it kind of comes in towards the open space.
yeah, leave that
I
out.
think originally we had it sweeping wider just to keep that open space more open. How does everybody feel about that?
Maybe another on it. Yeah, fine. I'll make a note of it though.
Seems like the priority is to maximize the open space, Rachel, so whatever we can do to keep the sidewalk out of the bigger part of the lawn, seems like.
Yeah,
You see how many yoga people were down there Saturday morning,
Yeah,
it'd be like 70.
A lot, for sure.
yeah, the farther it could swing toward Judd Street, I think the better. And then, it's hard to see, so it's a 5-foot path now?
and I believe it's 4 foot, actually, it might be 5 foot, though. Hold on. I really wish I was an engineer. This would be a lot easier. Just saying.
I could walk up there and look.
That's the bid document, which we're not. The estimate should
It
have
has to
it.
be called out on there.
I don't think so, concrete sidewalk, that doesn't say.
Oh, and those sections, it should
Where? Here, on the side,
check this first.
Rachel, it looks like in the middle where it says phase one, proposed 4-foot concrete sidewalk.
4 feet, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I believe they took it down to 4, that's ADA, so. You took it down as small as you could.
It says 5 foot here.
There are any projections about when this might be done?
I'll double check. It depends on funding. Ideally, it would be next spring. I'm hoping that we can go to council in July, give them an update in fall, or they approve the 2026 budget. And they'll allow us to hold on to that 30, well, not hold on, but basically have it next year. And then, we could continue on with the project.
Till
It's a
spring,
lot easier since we don't have to bid it out. It leaves a lot of opening space for things, so,
till springtime.
yeah,
Next year.
This actually is called out at 5 feet. Can
okay.
we clarify that? Because I think.
Oh, it is 5 feet right there.
5 feet, I think is pretty typical for a park,
Yeah,
like 4
I
feet
think that's
short
what we
for
asked for, is
residential. I
5
think that's what we asked for.
yeah,
But you can clarify,
yeah.
right?
And
And then, so when would this likely go to council?
it's gonna go to council July 21st, I believe is their meeting.
Great. Okay, moving on to new business, election of chair and vice chair.
Can
We
I ask
talked-
one more question?
Yeah,
Can you, when you send us an email tomorrow, can you include those documents?
yeah.
Thank you.
Chair and vice chair, I assume this is for my years of service as chair.
It is.
Okay, where we left off, and I'm sorry, Maggie felt it was emotional. We had talked about it back in January, is doing a trade mid-year, so. Anyways, that's what it's about. Let's see. Anybody like to make a nomination?
I move to nominate Danny Rocher as chair.
A second.
All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? Okay, motion passes. We have a chair.
Congratulations.
My only hesitation, unless Sarah or Maggie are on Zoom, would be to nominate either of them as a vice if they aren't here
I
to,
think they've both been pretty clear they.
they don't want to. Okay.
Right, which brings us to vice chair. And anybody else would like to do it, it might be a good chance, you know, to kind of transition. My term is up in December, and I think that'll probably be it for me. Anybody else interested?
I'm not allowed.
You could pick.
I think it'd be helpful to have.
All right,
Going as vice chair.
all right, do we have a motion then?
I'll nominate Jana as vice chair.
I'll second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
All right, Swamp.
Thank you, guys. Thanks
Thank
for the
you.
flowers. This was so nice. Wonderful. Great. Let's, and now the new chair will take.
So we had we'll have a report that shall go to you too, though, for our funding committee update. So if you want to walk through what we had, it was a really nice meeting, actually.
Yeah.
With the folks at the Petoskey Harbor Springs Community Foundation. So,
Yeah, Jamie and Danny and Rachel and I were there. Let's see if I can find it in here. DJ was really helpful. And I think we all feel like we know a lot more about, you know, the services they provide and the different types of grants they provide and where we might fit into all of it. So I just put a little blurb in there about what the foundation does for those that aren't that aware of it. Did everybody get a chance to read this? So we don't need to go through item by item, but, so it goes through like the different types of funds that, they will manage for people. And, what some of the aspects of all the funds are. The first one, special project fund, that would be for projects that we would want to do at the parks, I think, for the most part. This was how the skate park money was handled. And after hearing about that, he recommended that we don't get any more than one or two of these going at a time. So we thought one at a time was probably pretty good. And so we were thinking we might like the first one to be Shea Park. So yeah, do people have any comments, any thoughts on that? What would happen then is they would manage funds, and like we, you know, wherever we are promoting it, like with a QR code and an article in the paper. You could then pay by credit card, which is one of the huge benefits, I think. They do charge 2 to 3%. I guess we will work that out with DJ. And then they provide all the tax documents and all that kind of stuff. You know, they're very well trusted in the community. Have anything else to add?
No, they were great. And the other fund I thought was really the sort of maybe even more interesting to me, at least, that endowment fund, because the idea would be, we've had in the past some families like the Reynolds family who's donated to parks and done some nice things for us, but establishing a endowment fund that then could essentially we'd peel off the interest potentially. If we had a large enough fund, we'd peel off the dividend of the investments and use that for potentially programming is what we thought, so to help us cover all these sorts of things that we do throughout the year, and that we thought perhaps a family might be, or a group of families that might be interesting to them.
To help get things going.
I think the biggest thing was DJ recommended that maybe people would be less likely to donate if it was for just parks in general, because people would be hesitant of what, maybe they don't agree with the project we do down the road. And so I thought that maybe just focusing on programming would make it so that we could ensure that programming could always be a part of what we do. I don't think that it would have to take away from still getting sponsorships for particular events, but they could donate the money through the foundation. It would go right into the endowment fund and it would continue to build in that way. So I think that it would be a really great thing to look into and to see if we can get some people on board to help us start it.
You can take out 5% a year. So it would be limiting for like a big parks project. We just couldn't take out that much.
Well, and if it was focused on programming, it wouldn't ever be for a project. It would just be for Fall Fest or.
But let's say it grows and grows and grows, and then, that then would allow maybe at some point Rachel to hire somebody to do programming.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, probably not immediately, but 5 to 10 years down the road,
Yeah.
it could definitely grow to the point that it provides that. And, maybe we could use it to help pay for staff potentially at the skate park if they're doing programming up there. Like, we don't know exactly until we outline it all, but I think it's a great idea.
And so DJ was also suggesting that both of these funds, if you could find a family to kind of get them started. And it even could be $100 change just to get things off the ground. And Rachel is going to talk with him more on the details and such.
I also really think that, especially for the programming, that if for like sledding and s'mores, people might be more likely to donate if there's a QR code where they can donate there instead of having like, oh, I don't have cash. So I think that would be another really great way to grow the fund.
So we thought something that would be really useful for when Rachel or whomever speaks with potential big family donors, to have like a nice polished brochure that goes through, what events do we do and what we've done at the parks and our accomplishment, And so, if the board agrees to this, do we need to go to council? Did we decide at some point with, I guess we need to get these approved, right?
Yeah,
Through
I'm
council.
assuming you'd have to go to council to open an endowment fund.
I think
We have to go
that,
to council to open a special project fund as well.
which is great, but I think that maybe the way to go about it, and you had talked about this a lot after your MParks conference, was to talk about the events, and you've done a really good job of coming to council and bragging about the events that we're throwing and telling everybody how many people are showing up and how excited people are. And I think that that's the way to approach council, is to show that programs are wanted, programs are well attended. And to start a fund like this would continue to help the community for many years to come.
Do you think it would help to have a family already on board before going to council? Or wait,
I don't
or neither
No.
here nor there?
I don't know that it's necessary. I think the more publicity
Yeah.
you have about it, you know, if you go to council before you have somebody step up, that might be enough to have somebody step up.
Do we want to have our brochure ready to show council? I think that would be useful.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, and who knows when council necessarily will take up this particular recommendation too. So I think we've got, my guess is through the summer and then perhaps on the fall, we'll start to do it. I do think that perhaps if we together recommended to council that we approach the community, or that the council suggests to staff, they approach the community foundation for a specific fund related to Shea Park. And now we have kind of a total that we're looking for that's less than we thought, which is good.
For phase one.
For phase one, and then potentially an endowment fund that would be designated towards programming long term that we'd be looking to do. So that would be my thoughts, and so.
I'll speak to the city manager and the city clerk on what timeline, like how they see it going, like, does it have to be in the budget season? Can you open an endowment fund? Does it matter when you open one? Cause I agree with Danny, like, if we can get the brochure, if we can wait, let's get through the summer. And then, September, I can send, like, start working on the brochure and have it ready for that budget season conversation. That might be a great time to bring it up.
We could do our Parks Corner article with a QR code at that time.
That also gives us time to talk to some families and streamline some of that.
So there's a tentative, timeline, but it obviously it can move around.
Yeah, I think the first step, though, if there's a motion to sort of ask council to allow staff to establish a fund for Shea Park and then an endowment part for programming. So, but if there's a motion out there to do that.
I think that we should, if we wanna wait till we get a brochure,
That's fine too.
then wait on the endowment fund, but just recommend to start the Shea Park one now and then
I mean,
go back to council in the fall with
Well,
the brochure.
only thing I can make a motion about tonight is the special project fund, because I would take that to council July 21st, when I bring them this new design. That'll be perfect
Do we
timing.
want to have the board approve both tonight, though? I mean,
I don't think we need to approve both. I think it's more just research and then, because we know we're not gonna take it to them in August. So maybe we can think about a brochure, like some companies may do a proof of a brochure and we can take that, like we may not need to print 100, you know what I mean? Like,
well, DJ said they do have a graphics person that can help to some extent
Yeah.
anyways.
sure.
Yeah.
Do you know, Jamie, has council heard anything about this sort of endowment fund? I know you have, obviously, you've been on it.
Right, no, we haven't talked about it at council at all. I don't think that it hurts to put it in their ear, but I don't know that we should ask for it at this time, just like it may be an update, like we're also looking into potentially an endowment fund.
So I think it might be worth some conversations on
Yeah.
the side with council members, sort of telling them what we're thinking, to sort of bring them along before we just sort of say, oh, and we're also looking for
Yeah.
endowment for
maybe just
programming.
bring it up at the update.
Yeah.
And see if anyone says anything at a meeting.
So would we be comfortable in taking Shay to council without the brochure?
Right.
Yeah,
And
Oh,
but
yeah,
then the endowment, we would have the brochure.
correct, yeah.
So Shay, you're looking at about what time frame?
July 21st, so next meeting.
And would that be kind of timely with, taking the new plan?
Yeah, no, I take the plan and ask.
I
If
think
I can
that's
apply
great.
for the fund as
Love
well. I have to ask where I can
Yeah.
apply to DJ with the application.
I
So,
think it's great.
but that's a pretty quick turnaround once you, I mean, the foundation is very quick to respond.
So then,
Shay Park, there's so much good about it too, that you can pump up, you know, the educational aspects, historic aspects, ADA aspects.
Yeah.
so augment that, maybe just, can we get a motion from someone to, ask council to request that staff work with the community foundation to establish a special projects fund for Shea Park.
So motion.
There's a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
All right.
Have to break this.
You don't speak up loud.
So Mr.
It sounds like everybody's in favor. All right.
And then do we have an approximate time frame for the endowment, more like early fall?
Yeah, let me talk to Nick and Victor and see what kind of timeline they would prefer, what their thoughts are, and then I think that'll help
And I
it all come together.
I do think it'd be worth having some conversations with council and see what they
Yeah.
think too. 'cause
Yeah, see
ultimately,
if any
they've got to
red
carry some.
flags flare and then we can go from there.
Can we also, in July 21st, tell them that we're also looking into an endowment fund, just so they know it's.
I will say that in my update.
Yeah.
For
Yeah,
sure.
give that to Jamie.
Okay, excellent.
All right, then we're on to old business, it looks like. We've got two things in the old business. Both are sort of research heavy things that we've asked Rachel to help us with. So Rachel, you want to walk through what you have found out about the Kiwanis?
Yeah, so I did as much research as I could. I know this isn't every question we ever had answered, so I apologize. So one stall restroom unit, I just did a blanket quote from Green Flush Restrooms. And what I asked them was, what is like your most basic unit? Like what's the cheapest we could go if we did a one stall? They started about 100K. That doesn't include hooking to utilities. So that would need to be hooked to city sewer, or the septic, most likely where we've talked about putting it, it'd be city sewer, because it'd run a shorter line. So that's what we're looking at, if we just do a one stall delivery building, right?
So
This
what
is
we're
sort of
still,
an outhouse kind of thing,
Yeah,
right?
what we're
That's
still
they're gonna-
missing on this though is we still want to renovate the existing building with new windows and make the bathrooms ADA. So we still need a price on that.
So the modular option, so I think we all need to understand how,
We back up.
yeah.
Are we gonna try and somehow get that price though? Because just knowing that a bathroom is 100,000, we still need some money from the grant to fix up the building.
Well, I have fixing up fixing up the building is basically or Bluebird days. Like with tweaks, however we wanted to tweak it, to make those restrooms ADA, it's gonna be a pretty penny. To figure them how you wanna do it. So I guess my question is, and this is kind of jumping forward to the last slide, is do we spend $100,000 on an outdoor restroom? If we have to make the indoor restrooms ADA anyway, and we can figure a way to do that.
But do
I
we-
don't have the answer to that question, but
I guess my question is, if we didn't do indoor, outdoor bathrooms on the building, do we need more than one ADA room inside?
no, we would do a one stall.
A one single bathroom?
But
Which,
the plumbing would still have to be completely refigured.
right,
I think it would be useful though, like, is there data somewhere that says like if you have 60 people in the building or whatever the building.
We
is
just
like-
do one stall. No, we would just do a one stall bathroom. Based on the number of people.
And all due respect, but how do you know that?
That's what the builders all said. They said a one stall was fine, because we talked about doing a one stall indoor access and then making another stall outdoor access, and nobody had an issue with that. So,
I'm just thinking about like going to weddings and stuff like that. And, you know, one stall, you know.
but the capacity of the building is not that big.
that would be an option.
I think it's
if we want to have another stall, but we do not need to for
Mhm.
the use of the building.
But the $250,000 included the little additions though, right?
Correct.
So I think what we need for this one stall option is to find out what it would be without the little additions. You see what I'm saying?
Right, and I understand that, but like, you have to reconfigure the plumbing no matter what.
Mhm.
So it's going to be expensive, whether you have the addition or we reconfigure the restrooms, like let's say hypothetically, we made the women's room outdoor access and the men's room currently indoor access. The plumbing is gonna, all that plumbing is on the entrance doors wall. And we can't expand those doors with the plumbing in the way. So we could make one of them, maybe one stall, that'd be a question we'd have to ask. And then do the outdoor unit. I guess my question is like, does it make sense to spend $100,000 on an outdoor unit when we have 2 restrooms? And we have, well, I mean, my question is, do you spend $100,000 if we have to spend the money anyway inside the building? Like,
So
the money's gonna be about,
maybe if we rephrase that just a
Yeah.
little bit. So what this would tell us to do is we're essentially going to spend $100,000 to install what is basically an outhouse. We would then need to spend additional money, which we don't
Correct.
know how much that is.
Well, that's what I'm
But-
getting at.
but
What would that be?
Additional money on top of the $100,000 would be required to make the.
Adding the
indoor
windows.
And doing some other things to
Yeah.
the building. I don't think anybody thinks just maybe adding an outhouse is gonna be enough. And, or that the funders necessarily thought that that's what they were going to get, so.
My concern a little bit is the ongoing cost of having 2 additional restrooms that have to be cleaned very regularly because there's 100+ disc golfers there at all times. And I don't think that we've talked about ongoing costs of having the indoor-outdoor bathroom. And I've said this many times, how much can we add before we have to add more staff to get that accomplished? And I think that that is something that really needs to be considered when we're deciding if we want one bathroom to be accessed from the outside that's open, you know, from sun up to sundown, or do we want 2 available? Because 2 bathrooms takes twice the time to clean.
So that was one of the things that was and I know we're kind of skipping ahead
Yeah, sorry.
in this, but we're talking about bathrooms, what are you talking about? But one of the things that I saw in what you had sent us was one of the diagrams had this sort of back-to-back restrooms, so it had one that went inside, one that went outside, and rather than having a men's and women's, that were both available,
yeah.
it seemed like to me having one that could be open from the outside,
Right.
even in Mark's drawings, it seemed to me to make more sense to go back, if we were going to go down that path, to think about something, think about something more like this.
made to see if we did end up renovating the current building, could we do this? If we didn't add an outhouse, and we just looked at the current building, it may still be an addition, because there might have to be a small addition to meet the ADA requirement. Like, we have to get rid of like addition out of our platform. It may need to expand a little bit. But can we make one indoor and one outdoor? So there are 2 restrooms that are available to people. But they're easier to clean, they're easy to maintain, and it's easier security as well. The foyer option, although beautiful, is kind of a security nightmare.
That's kind of how I feel, especially, you know, if I'm not a parent, but like if I was renting that building for a 5-year-old's birthday, I don't want to have to share the bathrooms with disc golfers. No offense to
My
that.
feeling is it's more doors for the renters to lock. That's from a staff perspective, the least doors that renters need to lock when they leave,
Yeah,
always the
Yeah.
better. And this gives us that. It makes them responsible for one door. On
I,
the current building, I don't know about this diagram that much, but yeah, on the current building, it would make them responsible for one door versus a foyer door versus a door and then versus a door going out to the deck, like.
well, and the indoor bathroom would only have to be cleaned
Correct.
when the building is
Correct.
rented. And the outdoor one would just be a regular maintenance thing, and I think that that is what I prefer. I'm not against the remodel of the building. But I do think that if we are gonna renovate the current building, that the one indoor and one outdoor is what I think is the right way. to
So are
go.
those 2 different options kind of then
To
Like-
renovate the current building, yes, we could look at those two options, the foyer style versus doing a one stall indoor and a one star outdoor.
And then what about the outhouse?
And I don't see why we would do an out.
Right, cause you have the outdoor access
Yeah.
in the current building.
Well, unless it just would give you that much more room in the building for the common space.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So you'd put one,
One
bathroom
inside and
inside
then
and
do
then-
the outhouse separate, which is another option, but if that's more expensive, but do we value more space inside?
I
More,
think it'd be so nice to go into this project feeling like we're gonna really get something more out of it than we have now, and to me, like that central space.
I think the conversation tonight should be though, are we renovating the current building?
but I don't
Are we
think,
doing?
yeah, I don't think we're gonna be able to make a decision on that.
And that's okay.
So if that's our expectation, I think we're shooting too high. We've still got a lot of questions.
when you talked to the builders, did they just give you a ballpark, or were any of them able to kind of break it down a little bit further?
So I spoke to, Scott from Wentworth. And he didn't break it down necessarily. He did say if we renovated the building, we'd likely be able to get a new roof with some better insulation, so we're not insulating the walls. He'd mentioned upgrading the deck to like, the track. Why does our video keep going out? The tracks or like a patio or something like that. Pretty much from what I heard from a majority of the builders, not all, Dickinson Homes didn't feel the same. Their modular company was that we either need $1 million to do a new building, or we need to work within the confines we have $500,000 for the current building. That was basically the consensus.
Well, but then. Wasn't there,
My God, who's calling me?
I
Great.
thought Dickinson said
Great
for
calling.
to do a new building,
It's 475 on their
so
paperwork.
that's $100 million.
And that, yeah, but that's 475, it's a smaller building. And that's Ironwood Construction, they won't do the bid process. They'll only bid out design and
Okay,
construction.
so let's jump back. Sorry,
We're
we
jumping
jumped too
over
far
here,
on this
yeah.
one now. Got out of it. So on the stall, what might be helpful to know, Rachel, is if we thought about this as an option, doing a sort of an outdoor deal, which I agree, I think it seems expensive, honestly. But I don't know how to put it in the context of anything else, right? So we still have to do, is this 100,000 for this, and then it's, 150,000 to do the rest of the building, and therefore we're sort of on par with these other estimates, and then we're sort of apples to apples, or, so I wonder if, and I don't know who to, and then again, this one says doesn't include hooking into utilities. Well, if I go over the city services slide that you have, I mean, it could be, we could be $22,000 more on top of this 100, so now we're at.
Well, it would be also on top of that, sorry, I mean to interrupt you, but the hook, where we're talking about putting that outhouse to hook it to septic would be more expensive. The septic
Okay.
field is on the north side of the building, it's nowhere near where we're talking about putting that outhouse. But city sewer is, that would be much closer than the building to hook to city sewer.
Okay, so if but if we're gonna really think about and evaluate this particular one, which I don't know if it's a good idea or not, it seems expensive, but it could end up fine, I just don't know.
Can we talk, maybe just break it down, like what would be the pros and cons of having an outdoor?
Yeah, I
Because
think
like
that's a good
the
idea.
pros of having a separate outdoor facility would be, we could potentially gain space inside the building by only doing a one stall ADA bathroom inside.
So pros is that we gain space, cons, kind of expensive for what you get,
It
maybe, could
Could
be,
be expensive,
We don't know.
we don't know the
We don't know.
longevity,
right,
um,
or maintenance kind of stuff.
maintenance.
How many square foot would you gain, like by, let's say, a 10 by 10 bathroom or 8 by 8, you're talking 64 square feet out of 1,300.
Right,
Just,
so,
I'm
But
not,
it might be more than that with ADA though, by the time you have that big swing.
10 by 10 is 100. I mean, is a greenhouse, is a green flushing, is that heated?
No, I don't believe so.
So whereas.
I don't,
Has something.
it has to have something, cause they have them at other parts of Michigan.
Just because
So
of,
they're all your use, yeah.
Yeah,
so
but we're
I
saying-
can't freeze it. So,
Do we worry about something like this when it comes to sort of the security issues? Does it, or is it basically the same as we were thinking about if we did
Pro would be, it would be the one door
one door?
for the people renting the building. You
Sure.
wouldn't be sharing a bathroom with the public while you're renting the building. We could, I think that that adds the value to how much you can rent it, the building. And I think that when we're talking about renovating this building, I think that we do need to, at some point, address what we would rent it out for once it's, you know, I also think that a pro is that it would fit with the park, it would be rustic. It's like when you go to a campground.
And if we located it by the playground, it'd be great for parents.
Yeah, I mean, it's open. And
It'd be
the,
great for the guys that go eat lunch up there, just golfers, of course.
we talk a lot about how we don't have any playgrounds that have bathrooms, and so having that would be great. Cons,
So-
it's expensive.
So do we agree we would leave this as an option right now?
I think one of the other pieces of this too, though, we've looked at the green restroom. Well, we talked a little bit about this, if we just did one indoor, one outdoor restroom. You know, as we talked to Mark about the plans going forward, I mean, what's the cost difference of separating that bathroom all on its own? So if he designed a standalone restroom that wasn't this green flush or whatever, you know, what's the cost look like for that? If we're gonna separate them anyway, you know, there is some pro to getting it out of the building, so it's not taking up space inside the building. And it's sort of the vestibule idea,
I
it's
think it's
just,
worthwhile to look at both,
I think we
the
look
one
at that.
indoor, one outdoor, and then the outhouse.
and
So what do-
88, just like, 60 inches by 56 inches,
So that's 5 feet by,
5 feet basically.
okay, so now we're saying one indoor, one outdoor and an outhouse or?
No.
two options,
No.
yeah.
Nope, not adding, we're actually subtracting.
So Rachel, I think the main thing that we need to get a grip on is all that other stuff that still needs to happen to the building if we have an outhouse.
Is that,
So that would be the
becomes-
windows, the deck.
And I also want to kind of take the commercial kitchen thought out of it, because I don't think that that's, like, we had talked about a kitchenette, which I don't know that I would.
None of these include a commercial.
Right, but we had talked about a kitchenette, and I don't think that a commercial kitchen, I mean, it would have to have triple sinks or something.
I don't think,
Most of the companies have even afford it.
yeah,
Right, we don't need.
But I mean, I just don't, I mean, I don't want a commercial kitchen,
No,
I'm just
neither
saying I
do
wanna
I.
take that out, cause it's a kitchenette.
yeah.
I just know commercial kitchen had been mentioned, so I want to be very clear that that's not what I asked for. I asked for a kitchenette. So,
So Rachel, maybe when you come back with the next one, we could have the green flush. And we would know, maybe not exactly, but like, what is the cost to have electric for heat? What is the cost to have, you know, sewer and water? Just so it's all together.
Well,
And then also, what is the cost to renovate the other building having one ADA bathroom?
well, and what are
and
we
the
currently
kitchen.
spending to have a porta potty up there and have it serviced?
That'd be good to know, yeah.
I mean, when we're talking about ongoing costs, like that's something that is already a cost to the city. And so it could be the same to do it in-house versus having this company that has to come clean the porta potty.
So we have two options then for renovating the building. One with an outhouse, one with a one inside, one outside, yeah, right?
I think that should be the focus, or at least that's what I would say, as we start to narrow down the ideas, that this idea of one in, one out, or one in and a.
Okay, well,
Separated one.
here's another one I would like to also talk more about, that Scott from Wentworth told Rachel about, he said, what if you take the existing building and, you know, there's been some thought that there needs to be a new roof because of the icicles, you know, and the insulation and all that. What if we took the old roof off and change the gable so that it goes kind of side to side instead of front to back, then you could just continue that building out as far as you wanted to go. That could include the new bathrooms, it could include the kitchen. We could have a little bit bigger common area. And so I don't know if it's possible, like if Mark Boudet is talking to us right now, but,
He's not.
but if we could somehow get a rough idea for what that option might cost, I think that'd be really cool. I feel like, that'd be something that the donors would be really proud of. We've got a bigger building, we've got new bathrooms.
Can we pause and does anyone want to discuss the modular
Yeah,
idea anymore at all?
I don't mean to be rude, but like, I really feel this conversation is not focused. Like from a staff perspective, we need to, like, I guess I'm confused, like, are we ruling out the modular option then? Cause I can then go back to work with Mark and ask all these.
That is literally just what
Okay.
Jamie asked, so let us talk about that.
Yep, we're
I
gonna
think we
get, we're
are.
gonna get to it, we're gonna talk about it now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's probably where we're headed, and so that, and so that
We'll
starts
get
to
there.
get us where we need to be, but we
I
probably do
think
need
we're
to talk about
refining
that.
the options and what information we need right now.
So in my opinion is based on the numbers for the modular. I think we should go back to potentially to just doing the building, whether we do one indoor, one outdoor, one something somewhere else, but based on the numbers that were given for the modular, I think we need to just pass on that.
Okay, so that's.
Does anyone else
that's one-
think that we
that's
need
one-
to explore
I
that
agree with
more?
that too.
Okay.
I would not do the modular.
Well, the additional information that we didn't have last time was that an addition is not gonna cost 500,000, it's gonna cost 250,000. So I
Right.
think we were thinking it was gonna be a $500,000 addition on an old, so.
Right, and that was just information we didn't have at the time. So I
Right.
think this really does help us, so Rachel, I think this does help us, because I think what we can say is, well, we looked at the so what we
looked
can
at
tell, yeah, what we can tell council is we looked at a modular option, which would get us a new building, but it's too expensive for what we have budgeted for this, and wouldn't give us any wiggle room on doing any, on anything after.
Sarah,
so,
how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. Just to be able to, as we're looking at the numbers as mentioned, they came in much higher than originally anticipated. So I think it's good to be able to go back to council and say Rachel did her due diligence and did the research, and so we're gonna go in this direction.
There's one more thing I'd like to talk about if we can. Okay, and that is under stick built. So, everybody's saying, 500,000 would be kind of short for stick built, it'd be better if you had 1 million. Jim Ford, who, is one of the Evening Star owners, had a really interesting idea. He said that a lot of our public buildings in town were built under community build. So that would be the Reynolds Field building, that would be the skate park building, Kiwanis building, the Shea Playground. So I mean, it's just kind of overwhelming to think how you would organize all of these builders to do it, but he said, use your grant money to pay for materials, and he said there's no reason why every builder in town couldn't donate 1 day of labor. So that would be a matter of logistics, like, I think we'd have to find a champion, like a builder, a champion that would coordinate it and all of that.
I guess as far as stick built, I don't know that I'm in favor of tearing down the old building for a stick built when we could renovate for much cheaper.
But we don't know that, Jamie, like if they donated labor,
But nobody's, I mean,
we don't know that though.
nobody's come forward. I think I think that's a great idea, and that would be great if they wanted to do that, but I just don't see that sticking with our timeline. I think that would be something that's gonna take a lot longer to put together than continuing with the process of getting a design that we all can agree with, that council and planning commission agree on, and then bidding it out.
Presumably you could do you could make a similar ask on the renovation, to be
Right.
honest. It
Right,
doesn't have to just be stick built to get community support to help put in wiring or
absolutely.
do something else, right? To knock down the cost based on, 'cause, I mean, they're not building new or trying to renovate, they all have. some
I think
expert.
that
Yeah.
you would also have to consult the donation policy, because back when all of these buildings were built, there wasn't a donation policy, and so I don't know, I don't have it memorized, so I think that like, that would be something that we'd have to look into as well.
The thing that I look at is all those buildings were probably built 40 years ago or so. That's when people used to do that. Now people are having a hard time getting employees to build homes. That is gonna be more of a struggle. That's just my,
It would be an uphill battle for sure.
yeah, because back in the day when, it was the same thing where I came from. The Kiwanis, all those put together, the man hours, and now I hate to say it, but people would rather pay money and have somebody else do it than they would donate the time. These builders are stressed right now.
So I think that conversation, I think though, could. Like, I think it's a good one to think about as we go forward. I'm not sure. I don't know that I'm necessarily in favor of tearing down the old building necessarily either. So I guess, and I don't know what you guys think about the old building or if that makes sense.
I'd rather go with the old building renovation than have a stick-built building. And the cost of even removal of the building will add a lot of cost to it. I'd rather go with the, a renovation of the property.
Well, and I think that when people do bid out this project, if they're local builders, they may take that into an account and not charge quite as much because it is a community project. I mean, that's where we've been with a lot of these projects.
Some that cost me, but deferred by write-off section.
Contribution. Did you
But why-
say?
why don't we
Hold on,
keep-
one second. It's got to do.
So I think that the research that Rachel did with the modulars and the different builders was very good and very important to try to understand what is the best option that we have. And I agree to remodel the existing building today seems to be the best option. It also seems to be what most of the community wants. They don't really want the building to be destroyed or taken away. And I think, we're moving forward in a good way. I still have concern about the safety inside where that storage area is. I happened to see the man that fell in there today. And hopefully that will be part of the renovation. It will be taken care of. But I think that we have good options to renovate the existing building.
Well, let's create that idea of community build forward,
That's
just
a
in
good
case
shout.
we can.
Yeah, I think anything we can get
Yeah.
that people can contribute to it makes a ton of sense.
I mean,
Yeah.
there's a possibility that if somebody wants to come and install the windows and we just have to provide the windows, like, that's great, but I think we should stick with the current.
I think
Sarah?
Amy's comment about the timeline too
Yeah.
is really concerning. It's gonna really extend the timeline.
Yeah, and I don't know if anybody is even up for coordinating it. I mean, like I said, it'd be a huge uphill battle.
That's
So I'm okay with that. Sarah, are you all right with the direction here?
Yeah, it sounds good. I just think it's not unfortunate that we got a donation. It's great that we got a donation, but I feel like instead of, taking time and really planning this out, would it be great to have a new building and have $1 million? Yes, but with so many other projects that we're fundraising right now, it's just not realistic. But yeah, I agree that I appreciate Rachel's all of her research. But it sounds like renovating the current building is the way to go.
So then we could maybe get Mark Boudet back involved to look at some of these other things we're talking
Can I
about.
say one more thing? I kind of think that because we're already working with a $500,000 grant, that asking for a community build might be kind of double dipping. I mean,
I'm not against double dipping when it comes to.
but I do think that that is a concern that,
We could not specifically ask, but
Right.
just sell it as a community project and
Sure.
see what comes out of that without a direct ask, you know?
What I do think, if we can though, now that we've worked through talking about, we don't think maybe a modular is maybe too high. We think maybe stick building may also be too high. We've got a
Complicated.
couple options here. And it allows us then to potentially at least ask Mark to sort of think about some of these other things that we've thought about.
Right.
And then within the budget that we have, because I do think we've actually maybe given some options that might cut down on the budget or might change things a little bit in the way that we think about it, so.
can I
Yeah.
ask that another thing in moving forward? That we schedule potentially a time where obviously we can't all go look at it at the same time, but organize it so that council and everyone on the Parks Board is able to go and look at the building and actually have a good idea of, what works, what doesn't work. And just a brainstorming session so that everyone is on board and knows what is,
Well, it could be
We're
a public
working with.
meeting.
True.
I'm sorry, Dana, did you just say, can we hold a special meeting there? Is that something that is allowed if it's posted and agenda and all that kind of thing, and even potentially include Mark?
Yeah, Rachel just said we wouldn't have Zoom, but
Yeah, I think it's sort of worth thinking about as far as if we hold a special meeting up there or if we do a public meeting up there, either way, the idea is that us and the council can get a better look at what's
Yeah.
going on and for some, I think it might have been a while since they've been in the Kiwanis.
or even just organizing it so 2 or 3 of us go look
Sure.
at it at a time, at one time.
I think that's worth thinking about.
Before the next meeting where we're gonna actually look at the design aspect. It would be nice to know where you guys would put another restroom if it was not attached,
Well, and
to
like I said,
visualize all of
and
that.
I'm sorry, I wasn't meaning to push forward, but some of these questions are very difficult to answer without an architect on the project, which is why I didn't mean to push a decision, but we did kind of need to make a decision if we were going modular or renovating the building, because these are questions now I can go back to Mark with and work with him and get a lot of those
Well,
answers.
I think that is great. And I think what we've done here, though, as a board is decided that we've looked at modular and we don't think it's the way for us to go. And that was one of Mark's caveats for working with us, is that we had to make a decision on that. So we have made a decision on that. And I think if it is helpful, as a board, I think we'd like to have Mark re-engage in this process so we can start to move forward on some of this.
and I would really like to also look at this option that Wentworth came up with this idea of taking the roof off.
Yeah, I think
So we've got three options then,
Right.
right? Is that what we're saying?
yeah, it looks like we've got an outdoor that might be separated from the building, restroom, plus then an indoor restroom with the building, renovated building, obviously. One that is sort of more Jack and Jill, where we got, that's not the right term, but two indoor
Right.
bathrooms in one corner of the building. And then potentially, the idea that we reorient the building and the roof of the building that might give us more space with a
I like
restroom
that.
cover. I think it's
More
worth looking
common
at.
Space and then new bathrooms.
Yeah. Yeah, it's worth looking at.
And then we've got to find a way to get some tighter cost too. This just makes me so nervous, this $250,000 and
I think that once we pick a design, before we can go back to council and say, hey, we picked this design, there is gonna have to be a little more work done that says windows are this.
check mark,
You
yeah.
know, it just needs to be broken down a little bit, because if council says, we don't wanna spend that much on the building, what are we interested in taking out or?
We also need to think about things, we do need to think about things like the roof. When was the last time we put a roof on it? If we're gonna make this investment and it's about that, and it's been on for
Then let's
30
change the
years,
Direction of the roof at the
then
same
let's try to
time.
think about that.
So, once we pick out a design, we work with Mark and we work out the kinks of the design, I'll get ready to come in and do a line, what everything will cost. So then we can know.
Okay.
Can
what
we-
can omit. or if we need to at all.
So the
So-
next step to have Mark come to the
Yeah,
next meeting.
next step will be to send Mark all the stuff, bring him back on board. See what's realistic, what's not realistic, what the costs are, what the possibilities are with renovating the building with. Anything we could do in lines with renovating the building,
So,
and then,
and
and
to
have
set,
him come.
to set expectations for that meeting
Yeah.
and to set expectations for Mark, we really haven't gotten an opportunity to ask him any questions about his designs or made any suggestions about what we may or may not like to see. So that will be an opportunity for the board to look at it and give him some input as to what we were thinking or.
So he'll for
might
sure come to
change.
Parks Board then.
And
I'll ask him, yeah, but he was willing to come back in as soon as
Well,
we were renovating.
we're at that
the
point.
building, So, yeah.
And then I would just like to emphasize that I still do think that we need to make sure to consider the longevity of, you know, when was the last time we replaced the roof? What if we did a new roof?
All that stuff. has
You
to
know,
go
like
in.
that is the longevity of the building in general. And then also the ongoing maintenance. So like ongoing maintenance, if we have 2 indoor-outdoor bathrooms versus 1 indoor, 1 outdoor, I think those are all really valid when we make these decisions.
Sarah, are you still on?
I need to leave, cause I skipped golf to come here, to ask
Oh,
questions
geez.
about, but I had to be out here at 6:30, so I just wanted to know if there's any questions I decide to about the event on public
You
property.
should have told us we can flip that.
No, I didn't think it would last this long, sorry. Do you have any questions of me?
I think this is a super preliminary discussion about it that we're not gonna make
Sorry, I
any
didn't mean to
decisions.
change, but I do have to.
We're not gonna make any decisions,
Sorry.
I don't think
Sorry
today.
to make you just-
No, we're good. That, this is important. We participate in a lot of events on public property. I'm good with what we do. The guys are good. That's our expectation as a taxpayers. We're not criminally wise. We're not taxed as far as that goes. So our help is, that's part of our job. But
So it
I
doesn't
know
cost any extra for you to like do the few things you need to do.
It costs money,
What
it
it-
costs money for us to do them, but it's not, I look at it as part of our job. Like I just spent, prior to coming here, I spent 45 minutes at Hillside waiting for an ambulance. You know, it's like, that's part of our job. And just
It's-
like putting out signs for whatever it is, that's part of our job. We had a huge,
It's part of your job, but I think that there's a difference between a part of your job and also should it fall on the city residents to pay for all of these events versus charging some of these other organizations for doing them because they are for the greater community, and do the residents want to throw the party for all of these versus getting some money in return to help recuperate the costs? I don't think we're looking to make money by any means from other people,
my
but
biggest concern
there is a
with
cost.
charging is in 3 years, either it's a Headley or a police millage. And it's a give and take. Like I always look at things, how it's gonna affect us today, how it's gonna affect us a week from now, a month from now, a year from now, 5 years from now. In 3 years, we're gonna either need a millage, well, we'll need it, either we're gonna need a millage or the city's gonna have to reverse that. And I also look at how that's gonna affect taxpayers in their mind. Well, that's my big concern.
I think it's a great point, chief. And thank you.
So that's what I look at, like the millage passed the last time, I hope it passes the next time, I won't be here. But I'm concerned about the 7 or 8 guys that are over there. And whether it's that or the Headley, I always look at what does the taxpayers think? And she's a representative of that group, and so, but I also look, that's my biggest concern.
I appreciate it, chief.
All right,
Thank
and
you
I'll be
very
back
much.
again, all right?
Sounds good.
All right, sorry.
So
Sorry.
who's in charge if we have a fight?
A fight?
And
Bye.
Bonnie and the,
He's it, man.
Bonnie, the
She wants
bouncer over there.
Are we good?
Hey, I'm gonna circle back. Sarah, just to close back up on Kiwanis, did you have anything else that you wanted to add to that conversation? I want to make sure you got your 2 cents in.
Yeah, thank you for asking. I guess my preference would be that we explore any way that we can to make that communal space bigger. So the discussion about the roof was intriguing, and I'm hopeful, and I'm looking forward to hearing from an architect to see if that's possible.
Great, thank you.
Great.
All right, I think we're wrapped on that. I don't think we need any action necessarily, except for to ask Mark to re-engage, because I think we've moved to that point. Moving on to events on property policy. Rachel, I think you're on that one too.
So we reached out to some other communities in regards to their event on public property. I tried to reach out to some cities, but also some villages, because although villages don't give the same services that cities give, they are about the same size as us. So I kind of went all around. Sutton's Bay, $100 application fee, that's across the board. The village bills at the end for any city services used. Now, some nonprofits, they don't charge any fees, like school, they don't, some chamber events, they don't. It's a little wonky, and you'll see that across some of these communities. Approval process, it's a sit down with the event. The event holder, the fire department, DPW, police department, and village manager. They go over the application, they go through the entire process, everyone's signature needs to be on it, the event to go. Event holder needs to provide extra trash cans, porta-johns, etc. The one kind of strange thing about their application compared to other applications is their application is specifically mass gatherings of 300 and more. So for instance, Bonnie, I'm just gonna pick on you. Street music would not count. It has to be 300 people in one park or one spot, if you will. Like even open house wouldn't, well, open house would probably count. But it was kind of strange, like how they do that. They didn't, I asked, and it's just kind of like, if it's in one park, then it's a mass gathering. Boyne City, there's no application fee. Most of the community events, Mushroom Fest, 4th of July, things like that, do not get charged a fee. And then that's for Charlevoix County nonprofits typically. Private events are charged fees, it's about $50 to $100. That's consistent with what we do for weddings, things like that. The department heads and city manager, most things don't go to their city council unless there's a change in the application of a yearly event or there's something new that is that would be a big event. Little events, they just approve internally. So barricades, that's for trash cans. They ask for larger events. They provide additional dumpsters, porta potties if needed. City staff does have weekend trash removal. So they actually have Department of Public Works on weekends to do trash. The one thing I really liked about Boyne Cities is they have a dedicated form to street closures. So if you're putting in an event in a park, the street closure form would be attached to that with a map where you highlight everything you want. Or if you just want a street closure for a block party or for something, that just goes right to the police department and city staff. It's just a street closure form. So that, to me, is very clear, concise, kind of a nice additive instead of leaving it on the applicant for a map and like figure all that out. But that's my personal opinion. Frankfurt, all I talked about was weddings on the beach, non-refundable, it's $100. The beach is obviously not reserved. Glen Arbor, $150 application fee. Nonprofit fees are waived by the township. They do allow for-profit. They're very strict about it, but it's a 4% or $3 per participant fee back to the township. Reoccurring or small event goes to staff. Anything new goes to township board. They do barricades, trash. They only have one park in Glen Arbor. I don't know if you've ever been there, so they do not rent that out at all, only because that would be their entire park space. They also subcontract with someone to clean the restrooms on the weekends. So they also have weekend staff cleaning restrooms, change trash cans, things like that. Elk Rapids, there's no application fee. There's a fee for blocking and closing the road. She wasn't sure who it was. It goes to the village counselor staff. Petoskey, residents 75 and non-residents 125, approved by city staff or council, depending on the size. They do get reimbursed for police, Department of Public Works. It's agreed upon between the city and the applicant, whether that's city staff, I'm assuming city council, similar to Charlevoix. Extra pay meals, trash cans, police, but they also have weekend DPW. So having an event does not change their system on the weekends in any way, because they would already have someone going around doing trashes. So that's why when we look at these, it's not quite apples to apples. Kind of gotta take a further look away. Charlevoix, that's the longest policy I've ever seen. That is based on the time of year, the park. They have every specific annual event listed in the beginning of the policy from their chamber that's waived from all fees. I think it's the chamber, there's something else that's waived too, that's not the chamber, I can't remember, but, so that's all other stuff by council based on time of year, services requested in park. Applicants are responsible for trash and recycling, city provides police. It's a very lengthy policy, but like I had no questions by the time I was done reading it, so it's kind of nice. But, so if there are more, if you have more questions, you can ask. If there are other municipalities you'd like me to reach out to, I can as well.
This is really helpful.
It's pretty much what I learned from the phone is no one has a perfect system.
Yeah.
It's pretty much what we learned, you know, we all kind of laughed, so like, I asked, what's your system, because we're revamping ours, and everyone just kind of giggled. So, each community is different. I would say from a personal standpoint, dealing with the city, I'm gonna use 4th of July as an example. 4th of July, staff had to come in and do trash, so DPW came in, they come in the morning of 4th of July, they come in the afternoon of 4th of July, they come in the morning of the 5th, I came in the evening of the 5th, Sunday, and then Nate came in Monday, even though City Hall was closed. Like, we don't have, but on a normal weekend, besides 4th of July, Department of Public Works is not coming to do trash cans, it's myself who comes in to do it.
But for 4th of July, I mean,
That's different, I'm just giving an example, yeah.
In that
Correct,
one-
no, exactly, the Department of Public has to come in, there's no way, it's way too many trash cans, and it would be like that no matter what. But Festival of Book, the farmer's market, like it would be really nice from a staff perspective to have either someone come in on the weekends for trash that isn't me, or have events, have trash cans, and have somehow them take care of it.
I think that that's where I'm coming from, where I wanna know the cost of these things, like how much does it cost for the police to close down a road? How much does it cost the city to have you come in on a Saturday? Like, I know that you're salaried and like, it doesn't matter, but still, like, it's taking away from time. If you're coming in for 2 hours on a Saturday, you're not here for 2 hours on a Wednesday, or however you figure it out. You know, there's still a cost to the city for all of these things, and I don't think that everything needs to be charged, but I think that we need to look at what it actually costs, how many actual events there are.
I'll go back.
Can we ask some of these organizations to take out their own trash?
Well,
I'm
Are
gonna
there
pick on Bonnie
ways?
one second.
I'm gonna raise my hand.
Bonnie thinks for the taste is they take care of the recycling trash.
Which is
We
great.
have
Like,
trash.
that's really helps grow. Like,
Right.
that is like the one event where like, no one has to come in for the weekend, because you know that's
So
canceled.
then here's my question. So
Yeah.
one question as we were
Yeah.
thinking through this, though, like, I'd like to know, what are the big events that we spend probably the most time with
Right.
from a city's standpoint and spend the most money on? I don't know what they are.
The regatta weekend.
Regatta, I
See,
mean,
forgot it, like, from a city staff standpoint, sorry, Bonnie.
No.
4th of July, we can be a mess no matter what. I mean, there's nothing you can do about that. It's Northern
Correct.
Michigan, 4th of July. So events wise, you're looking at 4th of July, this is a holiday, Festival of Book,
Ice Fest.
Ice Fest, the big one, and the
Okay.
farmer's market, because the farmer's market happens on a Saturday. And after 1 PM, those trash cans are overflowing, someone has to come in, you can't leave them. And it used to be the marina did them on Main Street on the weekend, but the marina golf cart isn't allowed to go on Main Street, technically. It's not licensed to be on Main Road. So those are kind of the logistics that are wonky when we look at this policy of if we're not charging, what can we put on the event that they just take care of? Or that doesn't need to come in for it.
Yeah, no, and that's what, and I don't know, because I'm only one set of events. But I don't find it to be arduous, to be responsible, like at Taste, and it started long before me, I can't own any of it, was that we are a zero waste as much as possible. But we also get the recycle center involved, and they help us, and they send people, so that's, but it's one day, right? So that's an anomaly, as opposed to like farmer's market. And they do so much for the community, so you gotta be careful, right? Like, you don't wanna put strain on someone. But is it worth one-on-one not to make more work but one-on-one conversations with some of those larger Fourth of July? Sorry, I got nothing. But on the one-on-one events, like Festival of Blood, easier to talk about. Would they be willing to provide more assistance with some of that? Can the farmer's market help? I mean, heck, the garbage from the chamber, I take home and put in my bin. I mean,
I get where you're coming from, but I also don't know that we can necessarily form our entire policy,
no, you can't. You
based on
can't.
those
But
conversations.
I would request, please think about those long-standing, and they may help with some ideas, thoughts, and solutions to then, you're right, and maybe it's not our, I don't know what the word, not our traditional events, or extenuating circumstance events, or whatever you wanna call it, something new or different.
And
How are you gonna handle these things? How is, put some onus back on the event coordinator, how are you going to handle X, Y, and Z?
And to your point with the staff costs, like for police, so I did reach out to all police heads. Granted, it's the middle of summers, maybe I did put down what they do. None of them had staff costs to report. So moving forward, maybe I need a recommendation from the full board to ask for those.
I mean, I can tell you that when it was a for-profit event and we were going to close down for a commercial.
Yeah.
It was $50 to $70 per police hour that they needed to close down that street. So there is a cost, because there is, if it's a for-profit event. So I do think that that needs to be looked at. I also question, Charlevoix has a stipulation, like the schools are free, but if it's a fundraiser, it's treated differently because it costs money in some way to fundraise. And if we can't use the school gymnasium without paying a $200 fee, why are they using all of our resources, making $20,000 off the art show, and we're footing the bill for all of it? Like, that's
So I have a question.
where I'm at.
I have a question too, like, what role does, community input play in all this? Like, do most residents say, I think we should absorb all those costs, and I'm good to have my taxes going to these great event centers?
I think that that's a question that you can only answer if you sent out a survey in the tax bill to only the city residents.
Yeah, agree, but also be careful, you're going up slow.
You are, but it shouldn't be open to,
Oh, I'm not saying
Everyone
that
else,
part,
'cause
I'm
this
not
is
saying that part is
specifically-
slippery.
and I also
I'm
think
saying,
that if we're doing a survey that is sent in every tax bill, I would ask that it be written by a professional and not by city staff or by council. Like,
But-
I don't
that's
disagree with that.
where
I
I,
say,
you
putting-
you would get an answer we didn't like?
well, you be careful, we all need to always be careful. Questions we ask, right, if you get an answer
Yeah.
you do not want, now what do you do with that? And what is an answer you don't want? I don't know, maybe they say, what if they come back and go, because there's a lot of people who say they hate the 4th of July parade, they hate the fireworks. I mean, I'll throw myself under the bus,
Yeah.
right? A lot of people don't like it,
that's why I don't think a survey.
there'd be,
That's
exactly.
why I don't think that I wanna do a survey.
Right, exactly, so I mean, what if
So
your downtown community says, we hate it, we don't want it, now what do you do?
Another piece to this is bigger than events. This is a separate contract. So when I started 5 years ago, we worked with the Little League to come up with a contract, right?
Yeah.
Who takes care of what? What are we doing here? There was a handshake agreement from God knows when. we don't charge the Little League for the usage of the field. Likely appropriate, because they do everything within the field lines, and they do everything outside. But we pay for the water, right? We change their track dance. For instance, they tagged on a last minute tournament last week and called me and said, we came under something, now we have a tournament July 7th through the 10th, can you change the track dance? And Nate and I came in and handled that through 4th of July weekend and set that all up.
Are
Like,
they charging
it's-
money for their tournament?
Right, like there's more to it than just events, like we could open a door that says, what do we charge our, like, I'm saying with the survey wise, when we say like, I mean, Little League is arguably a nonprofit that's giving a very valuable service.
So
But we
what-
do spend money on it, absolutely.
So what if we did this? What if as next steps? So we've sort of looked at what's happening in other places. That's somewhat helpful, although it seems like it's a bit of a mishmash of all kinds of different things similar to what we're doing here. That's fine. What if as next steps, let's think about the ones that are the highest effort and cost events that we have throughout the year. We kind of have an idea of what those are. We've sort of listed out some, but we just added Little League and other things. Let's think about what those are. And then maybe it's a good idea to have some conversations about, okay, what are the needs of that event with the event organizers? What are the needs of that event? How can they be more helpful? How can we be more helpful? I think we can ask that both ways. And sort of formulate a bit of an idea of what the big events are, right? And then we do have some smaller things we like, what do we, Kiwanis is a thing, and we've got some other smaller sorts of policies we need to think about too. But maybe if we start with the big ones and
Yeah.
and start to work on that project a little bit. And try to figure out some path forward there, that might help us think about what some of the smaller ones might
And I
look
think
like.
that, and to add on to that, after you have the conversations, maybe just the email to those event organizers to say, hey, we're talking about this at our meeting. Come be a part of the conversation. Obviously Bonnie pays attention, but all of these other organizations might not be paying attention to the Parks Board meetings as
Right.
closely as others. And so we want to have the conversations, but
Yeah, you should not have to make personal appointments.
Yeah.
This is an opportunity, right? So there's open forum here, you all are here. It's a perfect place for conversation, even amongst the event people.
Right,
Mhm.
and there might be some common threads about problems that they're having or things problems we're having with them. I mean,
Yeah.
that seems like a place to at least start to sort of think through what it is that what are the problems we need to solve, and then how do we do it? It seems like. Sarah, I'm gonna tag you again if you're still on.
Yep.
Before we get off of this conversation, is there anything that you wanna add?
No, I like the idea of connecting with, some of the leaders of the different organizations and asking and having a conversation before we create a policy. It'd be good to have their input.
I'd just like to say too, that I finally did read the offense on public lands, policy. And I think it's really well written, and I think that, there's a lot of good stuff in there. So maybe we use this as a building block going forward, like what parts do we feel like we need keeping up or whatever.
Yeah.
Not just
I think it's
recreate
a
the
good
wheel.
start, and I went back and listened to the meeting where they created this policy. And it was the same thing, it was before Rachel, it was before a lot of this stuff, before the public safety millage, and they said this is a good start, let's revisit this next year or 2 years, and now it's been 5 years, and so I really think, and just to add consistency, because we aren't enforcing that applications have to be in 30 days before the event. It happens all the time. Some events turn in applications, some don't, the 5K didn't turn in an application on the 4th of July, but the art show did. The parade did, where is the consistency of making sure all of these events actually follow through and turn in the forms? And John Leo made a really good point when they were originally talking about it, that it would be really nice for the community to be aware of all of these things. And the only way for the community to be aware if something's being shut down is if it comes to council. Otherwise, there's no way to know that, whatever streets were shut down for the 5K from this time to this time. There was no way for anyone to know unless they went and investigated on their own.
That makes a lot of sense. So I think that at least gives us a next step path on this. This isn't one of those, we've got to get it done.
No.
Like anytime, we should get it right, doesn't have to be quick. So we'll just kind of keep thinking on that, if that's okay with everybody.
I don't think you should discount the influence of Regatta Weekend either. There's 100 votes, 60 people on a
Well,
vote.
believe me, I come in and do the trap, no matter what.
Yeah.
But yeah, believe me. But a regatta, again, they don't turn in application.
What would they turn in an application?
That's what I'm
for?
saying.
I mean,
Right.
you had to turn in an application to shoot fireworks off on a bar.
Yeah, that was a
I mean, Boyd,
bizarre, strange, unusual.
but also Boyd Thunder uses our resources and they don't turn in an application.
What do they do?
What's your bite gonna be if they don't turn in an application? Seriously, that's. the
But I mean,
question, right?
we have to enforce these things.
Understood, but that's the next question.
And
What is your bite if,
that'll be a part of the policy.
yeah, and yes.
So.
Don't have a policy if you're not gonna enforce it.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh, 100%. And then
So
people
at
have
some
to
point you
know.
say, we don't want a policy.
The 30 days, I mean, we can get into this more in detail. 30 days, I personally feel should be more of a recommendation. Some, I get it, they come in like really, really late, too late. Sometimes though, they'll turn in an application, staff works with that person for a little bit to work through that application, or I email it back with questions, then it comes back, and then by the time I hit a council meeting, it's almost sometimes my fault, like on staff at that point, because it took so long to get the answers needed to then take it to council. But we do need to have something in there that says like this, but I don't know, if maybe there's like, I don't know how we do that, but we should word it better, so we don't create a policy and then have to say no.
So, but
to
to
a
Jamie's
bunch
point,
of-
Jamie's
Right.
point is we need to be consistent. So if
Yeah.
that means if there's a 15-day window, because the 30 is too long, fine.
Right.
Well,
But
and
it consistency.
days from the initial application to you, you know, if you stamped it when you
Right.
initially start the application
Right.
process, that's 30 days.
Yeah,
Council is sporadic.
Well, that's.
So I
the other-
understand.
Say that.
I agree with
Depending
that.
on when is council meeting.
But also
I pay attention to that.
Bonnie is awesome and does all of her applications for the
Okay,
entire year,
January.
5 months ahead of time. You know, like,
So,
if you're gonna
be a
reapprove expense, there's no reason why they can't.
and I agree, it should be 30 days at least to staff. I always tell applicants, you know, you got this to me late, council doesn't approve it, like, it can't go back to another council meeting, like, you
Yeah.
put yourself in a corner, basically.
Would there ever be such a thing as a standing application that would just go to year?
I mean, that could be part of the policy.
Yes and no.
Well, it's worth, so one of those things that's worth talking about with them. So we've got this sort of next step. We're gonna talk to some of the folks who put on the big events. We're gonna
Right.
kind of pick their brains and try to figure it out. I think that's a reasonable next step.
Well, and for example, to the current process, like the art show all of a sudden made the rule this year that they weren't gonna allow trailers and RVs to park in any of their school parking lots. And I only saw that because I went and looked at their page and I said, wait a second, where are all of these people going to park? And none of the schools were under construction. So why was that a thing? That should have been something that council and staff was made aware of without somebody tracking down. And so like, that's why I think that all of this needs to be.
Yeah.
And I don't
discussed.
disagree with that, because like we get those phone calls,
Yeah,
an artist will call us and say, well, where can we park?
and somebody
I
said the
wouldn't know that.
stadium and I was like, no, that's where the parade is.
Yeah.
And so like, that was just something that, that would
That's
have
a great,
been overlooked had I not ended up on that website.
All right, any other things on this particular, on this? We think we have some good marching orders going forward?
So what do we need?
I have
from
one
staff?
more.
Oh, go Sarah.
I just one other thing. Rachel, is it possible to get like a brainstormed list of all the events that take place on public property in the course of a year? Like, I'm not saying spend tons of time, but can you brainstorm a list so we can actually look at that when we
That
talk
was
about
hard.
reaching out to people?
There was one in last
Yeah, I have, that's the
Meeting.
chart that we use.
I would.
I understand.
But I'll
Thank you.
email
Okay, thank
Do
you.
you want,
Thanks, Sarah.
Sarah, do you want the ones that are approved, or do you want all the events, whether approved or not? Like, for instance, I'm just gonna use the run as an example. It never went to council, but it is an event.
Right,
think
right.
we-
And I didn't think about that, as the run being, oh yeah, of course, we're using this. This is an event.
All events.
So, yeah.
Then, okay, and then do we want staff? Do you want me to try and get staff costs? Like, all I do is ask.
Yeah, I think we should. I would like to know, particularly on the big ones, before we go and talk to folks, it would be nice to know what staff spend on those events, because that should be part of the conversation, right? Like, I mean,
I don't
What
even
did
know.
your comments mean in here, though? Didn't you say they reported no cost? I thought they meant that it didn't cost them.
No, it doesn't have, they just didn't give me any. I asked for their staff costs
Okay.
and they weren't relayed.
I
But
mean-
again, it was summer, it takes a
But
lot.
you
of-
could
I don't know.
maybe break it down further for them and say, how much does it cost for the police to close a street?
well, yeah, and I guess my question is less about what others are doing at
Yeah.
this point. I wanna know what our, the
Yeah.
cost to our city. So when we go and talk to Amy at Festival of the Book and are like, here's what it costs to pick up the trash and all this stuff, we have some idea of what the festival costs us. Now, she will say it brings a lot of money in, and I think that's right too. So there's some give and take there. But I think we should know what our city costs are on some of this stuff.
But
If
again.
you need a resolution
do-
from Parks Board, Rachel, would that help?
How would you get those staff costs?
But again, when you say it brings a lot of things in, who's benefiting? Are the city residents who are paying for these services benefiting, or are the businesses benefiting? Where the DDA might wanna chip in for some of these events that are best for the downtown. Like, these are all things worth exploring, because like Bonnie said, there's residents that don't like any of these things. And for us to decide they're good for the community, it's not really fair, because it might be good for the downtown, but it's not good.
Yeah, I would encourage, though, it's good for the businesses, which whether the residents like it or not, without those businesses, their property values are either better or worse.
I agree.
And that is the bottom line. If that whole street is empty and every store, every restaurant is shuttered, these properties aren't worth anything.
Well, so all of those are conversations that kind of go above us at the city council.
Yeah.
Because they will have, they need to determine what that value is and all that. But as fact finders on this, I think if we can understand a little bit better what things cost, that would be helpful. And then I think we'll go around and start having these conversations with some of the folks,
Yeah.
the big events, and try to get some idea from them what the problems are and what the benefits are too. So I think that feels like next steps.
I don't think we need a resolution. I'll ask city manager to reach out.
I also just wanna reiterate, like, I don't know that you have to break down the cost per event, but just in general, like, it
Right.
costs the city
Yeah.
this much to
I-
empty trash
I
cans.
spend 2 hours emptying trash cans every
Yeah.
weekend. Okay, that's fine. That's a cost. All right. Anything else from anybody else? All right, any more public comment, Bonnie? Bonnie's out of here.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, Sarah, you good?
Good on my end. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, gang. We adjourned?
No, we have Parks Director
Oh,
report.
Parks report, that's right. I've lost somewhere I stacked my paper.
So we ordered the bike fix-it stations, those came, they're here. And we're not gonna put the one down at the Harbor Master Building until that's all redone. So we have a good place to move forward after that contract to put it in. Council has proclaimed July Parks and Recreation Month in the city of Harbor Springs. Woo-hoo. The Zoran Garden is in.
Looks great.
Okay, great. The boulders.
Just a
and all
pause
the-
for a minute. Do we want to have like any kind of event going forward for July Parks and Rec Month, or we can talk about another time, but
I was gonna do like a little like staff Facebook, Instagram post with like a little biography on
Yeah.
each staff member.
or stop by, yeah. Yummies to get your free ice cream cone on Parks, or I don't know. Just a thought.
Can we do something is there another kids stay at the market?
I don't know, I have to look.
in July. Like, it would be cool to advertise maybe like the passports more or do
Or what if
something.
we had a field day at Zorn Park? Saturday during farmer's market. Why don't we talk about that next year?
I think we're a little late into thinking about that for this year, but next
Yeah,
year seems like
next
a
year,
great
yeah.
idea to try to put it on our calendar.
And oh, before I forget, Rachel, for next month, could we update the parks calendar with what we think might happen the rest of the year?
Oh,
We usually
yeah,
do like
yeah.
a mid-year update.
Yeah. I'll send that in the recap email.
So you could add the, July activity, whatever it might be.
The boulder has been installed at Child Park. The family was all in town this weekend and they love it. They had a little family reunion. The beach gardens, skate park gardens, and marina gardens are mulched. Nate and I never want to touch mulch again.
Mhm.
It's a total of 40 yards of mulch to go in my city. Staff, this is on my last one, which I gotta get a hold of John Cups for the back nine of the T pads. He said we contact him after the 4th of July. Staff has removed the plants around the Lake Street and Arbor Street corner at Quanah. I don't know if you guys ever noticed them, they were hideous.
Yeah,
and They
yeah,
collected
looks
leaves.
bad.
The family actually called, so, we went up there, dug them out and planted new stuff. We trimmed the 18th hole, the tall grasses around the basket and the path of this golf course. That looks much cleaner. We worked with the DDA to build and install benches, bike racks and new trash receptacles downtown. So everyone knows that time is billed to the DDA. That's not Quanah Parks. We put a new cork board encasement on the side of the skate park building to keep people updated, pickleballers specifically on things going on and rules. And the game boxes in the skate park and marina park have been reorganized and updated with new supplies.
Rachel, just a comment, from my family, do we have umbrellas coming through the,
There's 8 of them,
pickleball,
yeah, they just
yeah.
haven't come in yet. 2 are gonna go to the pickleball courts and then the rest are going to Marina Park. The old ones have those old brackets, so we had to order all new brackets for them too. So yeah, I'll be working on that. And then our next event is swimming in s'mores. It'd be great if some of you could volunteer for that.
Yep.
And then youth pickleball clinic started this week. It might take some time to pick up. Mark's gonna, all the registrations through Mark. So we'll see how that goes. So it's really hard to judge things the rest of the week after 4th of July. I'm very tired. So yeah. Lots of cool things going on.
so maybe for even August's meeting, we might start just kicking ideas around for Fall Fest.
Yeah. Oh, and I'm going to the DDA, I don't know when their next meeting is, to request $500 to help with Fall Fest.
Okay.
Sounds good. Any questions for Rachel? Right now, I think we're at the end. Thanks. Sorry, Rachel, you're jumping down on that one. All right,